And we're live. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Outside Minds podcast. Because you've already seen too much, bro.
They only added it so it could be like a ritual.
They're saying there's these, the end of times, right? There's all these signs.
Do you think we would know? Like, do you think the general public would know this game?
You have a purpose in life, and if you don't fulfill it, you will come back until you fulfill it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Outside Minds podcast. I'm your host and creator, Stilo Free. This is the other host and creator,
Top 420.
and we got an amazing guest that's going to take us down a rabbit hole of C.I.A. conspiracies mixed with LSD and psychedelics. We're going to get right into it. His name is Rufio Martz. Go ahead and tell him a little bit about yourself, brother.
Hello, everyone. Well, as he said, my name is Rufio. My wife was the one who connected us all.
Yes. Shout out to Naomi Wilder. She was on the episode about she told us about Kundalini and all that kind of stuff. It was a great episode. Go check it out. But back to you, brother. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's all good. I personally, have been a Deadhead, a follower of the Grateful Dead for most of my life.
Okay.
And I got a very big prankster heart, and I'm very dedicated to the whole subculture and history of LSD and psychedelics in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like a passion of mine. And I wanted to share some history of how LSD played a major part in the government in the 50s and the Cold War era, going on into the 60s, into the hippie movement and the civil rights movements.
Okay.
And into the official dissolution of it in like the early 70s, and it going underground from there.
Yep.
And I think that's basically when they started to kind of do the mind control projects, right? Or was that a part of it all along?
Well, yes, that's a good question. Mind control has been part and parcel of the government, the deep state government, since its inception.
Mm-hmm.
They're also a follower of eugenics, which is a philosophy, a way of life for some of these people, where they believe that they're better than other people genetically.
Yeah.
And so they find outrageous ideas to cull the population, either through wars or sterilization.
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That the lady who invented that was a big part
eugenics.
of eugenics.
Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole.
It is a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that. Into that. But I wanted to start with, I guess, like the birth of LSD and how that coincided, like a parallel with what the government was doing. And there was this around 1938. This physicist, Italian physicist Enrico Fermi, came up with the not the idea, but like he found out, he discovered the chain reaction of nuclear fission, which led to the Manhattan Project and the atomic bomb.
Oh wow!
And also in 38 was when LSD was invented. Now we'll skip 5 years later, 1943. That's the height of World War II right there. America is already involved, and we're in Europe, and Switzerland is right in the middle of everything.
Okay.
All right. Yet they're a neutral territory.
Yeah.
And that allows kind of like a bubble of just like timelessness, you know, like even though all this like crazy shit is going on around them.
Is that where LSD was discovered in Switzerland?
That's in Switzerland, in this
it was invented,
place called Basel,
synthesized, you could say.
At this factory called Sandoz Pharmaceuticals.
Oh, shit.
And this man, Albert Hoffman, was working with these alkaloids, these ergot alkaloids, with this man, Arthur Stoll, who it was his project, and Albert Hoffman was brought onto the project. And his job was to find medicinal uses for ergotamine, and they were looking into ways to relieve headaches, into ways to relieve birth contractions, and they went through a bunch of different steps or recipes, switching just molecules around here and there. And the 25th one happened to be the winner.
Oh, wow.
And that was LSD 25. And
they didn't know a dosage at the time, and he had a little...
They didn't know it at all.
Yeah.
No.
Is this at all related? Is this at all related to the scientist that was riding
the
his bike
bicycle
through the
Yeah,
park
that's him.
and then he started tripping?
This is Albert
That's
Hoffman.
him. That's Albert Hoffman.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Okay,
that was his first.
get
That was
into
his
that
first
story right
accidental
now.
dose. Yeah.
Oh, okay, and that's what you're referring to. You didn't know the dosage.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So they were doing animal testing. They tested it on rats. Rats couldn't tell them that they were tripping balls. So there was no like real outward
voice.
signs
There's no parameters
of
to measure
effects.
from. Yeah.
So they shelved it. And in 1943, he had this like dream or premonition that he needed to look into that particular molecule again.
Okay.
Out of all the ones that he did, it was that one that was like speaking to him.
Yeah.
And so he resynthesized it. And as he was resynthesizing it on the 16th of April, a little bit of it got on his hand.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And it was a low dosage, but it was enough for him to feel it and get high. And he wrote about it.
That wasn't the bicycle trip yet.
That wasn't the bicycle trip. That happened.
No, that was just a
that
little
was on
spill.
a Friday, and then
he's kind of just
Monday
like, okay,
was April 19th.
your eyeballs where your
Bicycle
mouth is
day.
supposed to be.
And he wrote in his notes at 4:20 p.m. He took it. He took 250 micrograms, which is a proper dose.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's usually mic'd at around 100 these days, but like 250 will definitely get you there. And he thought, he thought, like rightfully so, that micrograms are barely noticeable.
Yep.
For most things. But he took it and he got high very quickly within like an hour. To the point where he had to go home. And so him and his assistant, Susie Ramstein, took a bike ride back to his house. And he was like hustling the whole time. And it was hard for her to keep up. Yeah, he thought that he wasn't going anywhere. And he just like appeared at his house.
Yeah, he said it was all vibrant and bright at first.
Yeah.
And then it got dark.
It's crazy that you say that.
It's
crazy
like
that you
the
say
night
that because when
came
you're on
and he was going through
psychedelics,
the woods, the vibe kind of changed,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he was getting claustrophobic, and he was feeling that
Yeah, he started
he
tripping.
he was possessed, and his neighbor turned into a witch, you know. But after his doctor came and told him that everything's gonna be fine. You just need to like chill, um, and he realized that it will go away. He started enjoying his trip, and then he started
Okay.
having like a transcendental experience.
Oh, nice.
And from then, uh, he started manufacturing it with Arthur and Werner Stoll, his son, on an industrial level. And that was around 47. All right, now 47, or that was around 45. 45 was when the bomb dropped. Okay. And that plays an important parallel because in spiritual terms, you got this invention that could potentially wipe out humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And then right alongside it, you have this other discovery that could potentially save humanity.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting that the government that created the bomb gets their hands
On that same
on
stuff.
LSD.
Yeah.
And that happened around 51.
And which government was this in particular? Is it the German government?
This was the American government.
Okay.
Yeah. The CIA.
CIA,
The OSS dissolved after the World War II, and it came back as the CIA in 47.
Okay.
And in 51, this man named Alan Dulles, who was a character, became the director. And one of his first missions was to utilize mind control. And he came across LSD when he was... Hold on a second.
You're good.
Buddy, it's okay. That was my big dog.
Big dog.
So where was I? He came across it when he was still working in the OSS, and he knew about its potential. So in 51, he started Project Bluebird, which was a project that focused on ways to interrogate the enemy using all sorts of means. And they were looking into the potential of LSD because it was very new. And
They were trying
then
to find a
we
truth
go on
serum.
to Project Artichoke, which kind of furthers its applications across the world, internationally. And they work with multiple intelligence agencies like the KGB, like MI6, who all have their own personal and mind control programs going on. It's just that the CIA got caught with their pants down, and they had to, share this information. But like, it's all over the world, and I have to be clear that the CIA and the cabal, these cults, these death cults, go hand in hand, and they need each other. They use the CIA as a way to move things around, whatever it may be. It could be weapons, it could be drugs, it could be people.
Yep.
But that's the only way that they're able to do it, under guise of national security.
Every time.
Yeah.
And
Big
Just
brother.
like Iran
when
Contra.
they
Big
say
brother.
that,
Yeah.
when they say that, you got to know that there's some shady shit going on.
Yep.
Every time.
So they were working with the Tavistock Institute, which is like the world center for mind control and social engineering in the world. And they worked with them to use aerosol sprays of LSD to test it on this place called Pont Saint-Esprit in
They
1951.
use aerosol sprays.
And what was it on? Just civilians or?
It was on the whole town.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it was not
dosed
only
the whole town
aerosol.
with
They
LSD?
Dose me up.
put it in water as well.
Hey, talk about an
in the
LSD
drinking
party.
water, and they also put it in the bread. And Sandoz, Switzerland, was just like a couple hundred miles away.
Uh-huh.
So the authorities thought that they had something to do with it, or at the very least that they knew what was up and can help them solve the problem, because they knew that there was a mass poisoning going on, but they couldn't pinpoint it. And so Albert came down himself and tested the bread, the water, everything.
I know what this
And
is.
He found out that there was no
I'm the guy. I'm the
real,
guy.
yeah, the guy. He found out that there was no real ergot in the bread,
Synthesized.
or otherwise. But what the thing about LSD is, when it's sprayed and it hits UV light, it dissolves very quickly.
Okay.
It dilutes. When it hits chlorine in chlorinated tap water, it dissolves very quickly. When it's injected into bread, it'll go away after it's been ingested. And the thing is that they were using scientists that didn't really know how to make it correctly yet. Even though there were a bunch of smart scientists.
Yeah.
Scientists that some of them were from Project Paperclip, which happened in 1945.
Okay.
I know you wanted to talk about that.
Can you explain that for our listeners who don't know what Operation Paperclip is? Just kind of in a nutshell, what it is?
For sure. Operation Paperclip was a CIA or OSS government top secret project that smuggled German Nazi scientists, rocket scientists, biochemists, people that were very smart in their fields.
This was the U.S. government, by the way,
Yes,
basically
the US
drafting
government.
Nazi scientists.
That's why they say the
They made
Nazis
a
didn't really
contract with
die.
These guys that said, if you work for us, we will get you out of there. We'll save your life and get you out of there.
Yep.
And they brought them through channels into South America and Argentina, up into Mexico, and eventually into places in America and in England.
And if I'm not mistaken, they're responsible for creating NASA, right?
Among other things, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, one of the participants in the Manhattan Project was a rocket scientist, Werner von Braun, who was a Nazi scientist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Part of Project Paperclip.
His name sounds like a supervillain.
And if you haven't heard that name, you're not paying attention.
Yeah, seriously.
For real.
Well, there's also other notable, very evil people that came over, such as Josef Mengele, who was known as Dr. Death.
Yep.
He was the lead chemist, doctor at Auschwitz, and he personally picked people to experiment on as they came in the lines, and he
And
had
we just got him in America.
for twins.
This guy's smart. We got him.
Gotta grab the
Lord
best
have
of the best,
mercy.
no matter what they did.
He had an affinity for twins because of genetic purposes. He's like one's a control subject and the
Oh,
other one I'm going
wow.
to do all sorts of weird shit to him.
Damn.
And so he's going to play an important part later in this story too. But as of right now, we are in 51, and let's go into 53. That's when MK Ultra officially begins.
Okay.
And they saw the success that psychedelics and especially LSD can do. And they wanted to get a stronghold on it. So first they called up Sandoz and they offered to buy out their entire supply.
Oh, wow.
And they
We
offered,
want all the drugs.
Yeah, they offered $250,000 for it, which was a lot of money at the time.
Back then, yeah.
And they thought that they had 10 kilos of it when they only had 1 kilo in reality. And that's still like millions
That's
of
still a
doses.
lot. Yeah. You only need
So
micrograms. So
they did come to an agreement that they would mail them 100 grams weekly and that they would not send it to any communist countries. And they agreed. But the CIA wanted more. So they set up their own laboratories. And one was in Czechoslovakia.
Oh.
Another one was at this place called Eli Lilly and Company. I forget where exactly it is. It's in the East Coast. And they made a lot of LSD.
They was the plug.
Yeah. And they made their own farms, their own rye farms to harvest ergot. And
Oh, shit.
they worked with this particular military base called Fort Detrick. And so Fort Detrick was already an army base.
that's where they ran the test on the soldiers.
No.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
That is Edgewood Arsenal.
they failed.
And I'll get to that. One. But Fort Detrick is where they made it military. They made chemical warfare, biological weapons, and they also made acid there. And there was this one guy there. His name was Frank Olson. He was the head of Fort Detrick. And when the army, and particularly that base, was tied together with the CIA, he kind of like fell into, okay, I'm working with you guys now. They put him as the head chemist for Project Bluebird and Project Artichoke, and wanted to put him on for MK Ultra. But by the time that Pont Saint Esprit happened, he was on that flight to France the time that happened. And he's also got like passport proof that shows that he was there at that time. And he was also in North Korea, because that was going on too after World War II.
Yeah, they had like secret labs, right? That they disguised as like research labs, but they're really making like chemical weapons based on that stuff.
Yes, and that's one of them is Fort Detrick.
Oh, okay.
And
so same
they
thing.
were testing these chemical weapons on undesirables.
People they captured.
Whether they be enemies of the state or people of different colors, or just social backgrounds, whatever. But that's how these people view
Yeah.
humans.
Definitely.
And
Just like test experiments.
Yeah, they're subjects.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
They're a number.
it's very unhuman-like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, where was I? All right, so Frank Olson was participating in the Ponce Esprit poisoning of the town. And by the time he got back, he was having a change of heart. And he did not want to be a part of it anymore. He was finding out a lot of information how the CIA was deliberately testing on their own people, and he was feeling guilty about the chemical spraying on Korea and on France. And he also was witnessing some terminal torture interrogations. He was watching people die in front of him.
Yeah.
Using his drugs and people being beat to death. And he didn't want any part of it anymore. And so the CIA threw a party and invited him to it along with some other people. And they purposely dosed him with acid and then interrogated him.
What?
To see if he would recant
What he saw.
That's
his
insane.
opinions that of the government, right? And he wouldn't do that. He was a firm believer that they were doing wrong things, and so now he became a liability.
Wow.
That was to test to see if he was a liability, and he was a liability.
He's just tripping balls on acid. Like, nah, you guys are fucking.
You guys are tripping.
Yeah, killing people,
Yeah, he had to
torturing
come to
people.
Jesus
Hell
moment,
no.
right? So they took him to New York for a debriefing, and there he was like, I'll just go away. I'll just disappear. I want to quit. Just let me go. And they wouldn't let him go because he knew too much.
Yep.
So
They're like, nah, you don't get out of
they
this,
kept him
homeboy.
in a hotel for 10 days. And then one night they came in, bashed his head in, and threw him out of a 10th floor window. And they covered it up, saying it was a suicide brought on by an accidental dosing of LSD.
That's like a Bill Hicks
Wow.
joke, right?
Yeah. But that was really just a cover story for the CIA doing a planned execution on this man because he knew too much and would expose them for what they were doing. So they tried to hush up the family by giving them a compensation and then having them all sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, so where they can't sue them anymore or bring it up anymore.
Oh, my
But
God.
his son, Eric Olson, became obsessed with the whole thing, and he's dedicated his whole life trying to expose this. There's a cool documentary out on Netflix. It's called Wormwood.
Okay. Yeah.
That explains a lot about that. But so that happens in 1953. Also in 1953, they start sending it to institutions, prisons, universities.
Are they using it to test on people and prisoners and
Yes,
stuff?
they are.
Wow.
They are doing some that are undercover of research, experiment, come volunteer, right? And that leads us into the Edgewood Arsenal, where they were dosing their own military, and they were videotaping it, and just to see what would happen. They would put them in scenarios, really intense scenarios, like life and death scenarios. While they were tripping, they would have them run drills, and they couldn't keep it together.
They'd just
They
be
were,
laughing.
Crazy.
Yeah,
They'd
they
just
would
be
be
laughing
laughing.
and
They
dropping
couldn't stay
weapons.
in
They're like,
line.
fuck this. Yeah.
Yeah.
No control
They would
over
try
him.
and get him to like answer questions, and they're just like off in their own world and describing the colors and whatnot. And so about like maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 5, 6 years of this kind of stuff goes on, this experimenting on people. Then it goes into a couple different directions. All right. It goes first on the East Coast to Harvard. All right. And this man named Timothy Leary.
The Godfather.
I've heard his name before.
He got grants through the Mental Health Institute, which later on is uncovered to be a CIA front for MK Ultra.
Oh wow!
All right, and they are supplying him with government acid. And
Government acid, that good shit.
Straight up. That's how the Grateful Dead, like you said, got a hold of it.
Well, they got their own supply, and I'll get
They
there.
had their own chemist, right?
Yeah,
But
they had their own chemist.
they had their own
But
chemist.
in Harvard, Tim Leary and his partner Richard Alpert and another man named Ralph Metzner started doing experiments with their students and coming up with like a thesis or whatever. Take this, tell us what you think, and they started having like weekly trip parties. And the faculty got wind of this, and they didn't like it too much, but it was still legal at the time.
At the time, yeah.
And so they couldn't do much about it except fire him. And so he took his findings and brought it to this place called Millbrook Estate, which was in upstate New York. And he started a couple foundations. One was the League for Spiritual Discovery, and a couple other ones. But he basically became a self-pronounced high priest of LSD guru. And it was his mission to just like promote
Share it with the world.
of acid.
Yeah.
And that eventually took LSD in a few directions that were kind of unforeseen, but I'll get to that in a different point. Now I'm going to jump over to the West Coast. Stanford University, also another front for MK Ultra research. This man named Ken Kesey volunteers for experiments for this new drug, which happens to be acid. And he loves it so much that he ends up stealing a bunch of it
Hell yeah.
out of the university and getting a stash of it. And then he goes on to write One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he gets a lot of money, and he starts a commune. And this was before hippies. All right. It's like, but it was like not quite beatniks. They're like proto hippies at that point. They called them like freaks at that point. And they wanted to express themselves as artists and creative people. And they started eating acid, and they found an outlet. And there's a dichotomy of how the East Coast treated acid and how the West Coast treated acid. The East Coast, well, let's break it down even further. Set and setting is an important thing for a psychedelic trip.
Oh yeah.
All right.
We're gonna have to send you another Zoom link because we're running out of time right now. We have less than a minute.
Oh wow. Okay.
So give us a minute or two, and we're gonna send that right over, and we'll continue right on.
All right, for sure.
Okay, I think we're back. Can you hear us? Okay.
There we go.
Yo. We're back.
All right. So where was I?
So just to give you an idea, we got about 20 minutes left.
Okay.
So just I know you're getting through all the points, but just to give you a rough estimate of what we got, so you know what kind of pace we're going at. But East Coast and West Coast and psychedelic trips, the setting is very important, right?
Yeah, the setting. Yeah. So, for the East Coast, their setting was very psychiatric, very
Controlled.
highbrow, and they wanted to take it through an academic route. So it was sterile. Whereas the West Coast and the Merry Pranksters, they opened themselves up to the creative side of it. And they used music, they used art, and it really showed a different side that LSD can change a person.
Is that kind of where the Laurel Canyon scene comes in?
That's where the Laurel Canyon scene,
Okay.
exactly. So just a little further down south in LA, Laurel Canyon was a hotbed of music and art, and that's actually where the term hippie started. All these musicians that came out of there, their parents,
Trust fund kids.
to a T,
Trust fund kids or military babies.
they were all military intelligence of some sort, either
course.
Air Force or Army or Navy. And I'm not saying that they like made the groups, but they definitely helped promote their music.
Yeah.
And it was at a time when anti-war activists were still wearing like suit and ties, and they were still being like listened to by high society, and the CIA wanted to curb that. So they wanted to promote a counterculture that basically just defied the system so that they wouldn't be listened to by high society. And it ended up working.
Wow.
To a point. But they didn't expect how LSD would play a major role in the counterculture revolution and in civil rights.
Yes, sir.
And so what it did was it got out into the streets. Underground chemists started making it, and they took it around the country and spreading it. And it got a lot of people to open their minds and think differently, question authority, question just everything that they've been fed, their whole lives.
And that's where you get like the anti-war movements and stuff, right?
That's where you get the anti-war movements, and that's where you get the civil rights movements, where everybody should be equal, and we're all human.
Yeah.
And the anti-war movement, where we shouldn't be going to Vietnam. And
this is all a result of the effects that psychedelics have on the human psyche, right?
Exactly. As a culture, as
Also
a
led to the
subculture.
creation of the computer.
Yeah.
The creation of the computers. It was also the inspiration for DNA. The guy who discovered DNA was high on acid when he like saw the spirals.
What?
And there, Carrie Mullis, who was another Nobel Prize winner. He was also a big proponent of acid.
Wow.
There was a lot of people that did a lot of cool things because specifically of LSD.
Yep.
And so Laurel Canyon. Also, a fun fact about Laurel Canyon is that the CIA and the Air Force had a film studio there. And they would, in the 50s, they made a lot of Cold War propaganda movies.
Yep.
They made a lot of fake nuclear explosion test footage.
Like the
It's
mushroom
kind
cloud
of like
footage?
the space race mentality, you know.
Okay.
They weren't up to snuff, but they wanted to show Russia that they were better than them, so they had to like fake shit. That's
Propaganda,
also where
yeah.
they
Moon landing.
shot the moon landing. That's where Stanley Kubrick did the moon landing
Nice.
footage.
Told you
Was
Stanley
at
Kubrick. Yep.
that
sir.
place. It was I forget the name of it, but recently Jared Leto bought that facility.
Oh yeah,
And
I heard
now-
about that. I heard about
Now
that.
he has
He's
his
shady
own cult
too.
there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He has his own parties where it's just him and a bunch of females.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
on an
it's his
island.
cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't help that he has a Jesus haircut and beard.
Yeah.
Good Lord
So-
have mercy.
It goes on to 68. Let's start there. The government realizes that LSD is getting out of hand. They can't control it anymore.
It's out of control,
so
son.
They need to.
We need
shut it
to get
down.
our hands on it.
Yeah, they
And
need to put a stamp on it.
Yep.
They need to stamp it out, snuff it out any way they can. So they do a smear campaign, and they sensationalize stories, telling people that it's gonna break your chromosomes and you're gonna put your baby in the ovens. and you're
they
gonna
locked
jump out of
Timothy Leary up, right?
windows. They also used Tim Leary as a scapegoat for
Yes.
sure, and
Wasn't his wife sneaking in LSD to prison so he could trip?
he was. He actually got
he's like, I
busted
need
out
that.
of prison
Yeah.
by
Yep.
the Weather Underground, which is an African American. I wouldn't call them an extremist group, but they're like the Black Panthers,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
And they helped Tim Leary escape the prison and the country, but he ended up getting caught later.
Yep.
And kind of like turning coat and giving out information,
Yep.
which is a no-no.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm just going to focus on what happened after the criminalization of LSD. That was in 68. Now, that also culminated in 69 when Charles Manson
Yep.
came into the picture and did all those murders with the girls. And that has proven to be also
An
done with
experiment
the
or
help
project.
of CIA as well. The CIA and the FBI, they were pretty much like supplying Manson with LSD to give.
Yeah, he
to
wasn't
these
tripping. He
young
was having the
women.
girls trip. Like he was just controlling them, and he wasn't tripping at all.
and he learned a lot of these techniques, these mind control techniques,
Yep.
Wow.
from CIA fronts like the Process Church, which is a satanic church.
Oh, and that's where the SRA comes in, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, SRA is in throughout the whole thing. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
They need it. To them, they need it, and so they will do anything they can to get into that.
Is it like
you know?
energy harvesting?
Yeah, they call it loosh energy. It's a low
Stealing my
vibratory
loosh.
energy that you emit when you're stressed out or
Going through a
in
traumatic experience.
extreme, frightened,
Yeah.
emotions. And it's like a heavy, thing that you radiate that subtler dimensional entities feed off of. And so they create scenarios in the world.
Basically,
that create
Monsters
that
Inc. in
a
real
world
life.
on a large scale, such as wars and assassinations and whatnot. False flag scenarios. Those are big loosh harvesting things. Anyways, going on into the 70s, the government, through the fallout of Watergate, finds out that CIA is doing MK Ultra. So they have to explain what they're doing, show documents, and they have to officially shut down. Well, they never really shut down.
Yeah, they just on paper shut down in 71.
Yeah, they just go underground.
Yeah,
they just go underground.
Yeah.
The mind control techniques, procedures, they go into the cult networks, the satanic cult networks, and so it's more underground, but it still happens.
Yeah, and it's still tied to them. Yeah,
and they start another project called Project Monarch and Project Montauk.
So let me get this straight. Let me get this straight real quick. You're telling me that all the experiments that they did with mind control and then the LSD and all the information that they got and all the mind control techniques through the various government agencies got leaked into the satanic cults that then used them for their own purposes?
They were given to them.
Yeah, well, the satanic cults were helping them with the
it was given to them.
That's why I was saying.
Yeah, it was given to them, so they still have their hand in it.
And the cults work hand in hand with the CIA governments. They work together. They're like two sides of the same coin.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Well, it's your own government, folks.
That's
go
the
to
deep
Project
state.
Monarch. And this is where Josef Mengele comes back in. All right.
Okay.
Project Monarch and Project Montauk are his babies. And he has perfected trauma-based mind control techniques at this point. And he's kidnapping kids, homeless children,
oh my God.
Orphans, whatnot, undesirables, people that won't be missed.
Yeah.
And taking them or like through CPS or whatever, and putting them in these facilities and doing these experiments.
That's Montauk, New York, right? And they call that the end of the world because it's the uppermost east or the most eastern point of the United States.
Yeah, it was this island called Camp Hero on Montauk Island in New Jersey.
Wow.
Actually, some people say that the Jersey Devil, a cryptid, is actually
a byproduct.
An experiment that broke out of Montauk.
But there's also the Montauk Monster, right, in 2008.
Are we talking interdimensional beings?
In that area
it could be, yeah.
That supposedly come from that island.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so that's just one of the things that they do. They do genetic experiments there. But they also were testing for super soldiers and psychic kids, right?
Yep.
And
Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things. Yep.
Well, actually, a fun note on that. I know someone who claims that whole story was based off of her.
It was actually supposed to be called Montauk, and the brothers openly said it was supposed to be called Montauk, but they changed it to Stranger Things. So it's 100% has to do with it.
Real documents that they based the story off of. And 11 was a real girl, and this girl is my friend.
Wow.
Her name is Lauda Leon.
Wow.
She lives up in Canada right now.
What?
Amazing.
She's got her own YouTube channel called Sovereign Key. You should go check that out.
Definitely check that out,
man.
But along with her, there was this other thing I wanted to mention real quick before we go off. The 1st Earth Battalion. Okay. This was an Army project, not necessarily CIA, in the 70s. And they wanted to come up with different ways to psychically spy on the enemy. So they hired this man, Jim Channon, who is the main figure in the movie The
Men Who Stare at Goats. Yep.
Yeah, nice.
Lieutenant Django
yeah.
was his name
Yep.
in the movie, played by Jeff Bridges, but his real name was Jim Channon. And he was also another really good friend of mine.
Wow.
I met him in Hawaii. You know, in the movie, they say like he disappeared, never to be seen again. Well, he went to Hawaii,
Oh, okay.
the Big Island, and
The Big Island.
he started his own commune out there called Archie. And it was like an eco village art commune, and it was amazing while he was alive. And he was hired when he was working in the army to go all over America and find different ways to enhance psychic abilities.
Wow.
And he
X-Men.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or like Jedi warriors.
Definitely.
He called his battalion Jedi
The
warriors.
Jedi Warriors. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And they would use LSD, among other things. They were the first ones to really coin the term remote viewing.
Oh, wow.
And like this, he wrote a training manual that became like an underground like trading card kind of thing.
Oh,
amongst
wow,
the
sick.
military.
Oh, nice.
Like,
Nice.
if you had it, you were cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And okay, so that I guess I could stop there. You know.
Hell
That was great.
Unless you got any
You
more
took us
questions,
on
I can
a
answer
whole
some questions.
history,
Hey,
man.
bro,
That was
you
great.
make me want to go home, open my fridge, and pull out some tabs
Yeah.
on everything.
Well, I actually ate some right before the interview.
Hell yeah.
I love that painting behind you, man. You got
I've been
the
look- I've been
cannabis, you got
glancing
the
at it back and
mescaline,
forth.
You got, dude.
I
hell
love
yeah.
it.
It's sick. You got Shambhala in the back. Hell yeah, dude. I
Yep.
love that, dude. Hell yeah.
That shit's dope. I
Yeah,
love
it's
the
all the,
balance.
Medicine plants
Yep.
Hell yeah.
in the world.
I got a few of those cactus in front of my crib because my neighbor, he actually grows plants. He owns his own haberdashery and he does psychedelics
Nice.
too.
Haberdashery.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Do you have any psychedelic experiences you could tell us about where you had like maybe like an intense telepathy or maybe like a DMT trip where you kind of just blasted off or something like that?
Where to begin? Well, let's see. Well, I could tell you about a DMT trip I had.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Let's go.
I'm in Hawaii. I was on this waterfall and I was smoking. And as I was smoking, so there's like trees and water and dappled sunlight everywhere. And really, as I start smoking, everything starts coming alive and getting brighter. And I'm just noticing the energy bands that are kind of like merging with the whole landscape. You know, the
Wow.
energy of the water is merging
Yeah.
with the energy of the dirt, which is merging with the energy of the light and the leaves and the trees, and they're all dancing together. And then I start having this vision of bubbles and how
Wow.
in each bubble it is like a holographic realm, and how
Fuck yeah.
our planet is a holographic realm inside of a bubble.
Hell yeah.
And I just had my mind blown thinking about that.
Nice. That's
Yep.
amazing. Fuck
Yep.
yeah, dude. Hell
I love
yeah,
that.
hell yeah. Well, you guys heard it. Rufio Martz took us through the history of LSD all the way through Operation Paperclip, CIA mind control programs, MK Ultra, Project Monarch. Man, it was amazing to have you. Congratulations on the wedding. Tell your wife, Naomi, thank you for linking us up. This was an excellent episode. Is there anything you want to leave out to our listeners, out to the world? One last message.
Eat more acid.
Eat more acid.
Shout out.
Nice.
I agree.
I'm pretty sure our paths will cross again soon sometimes. I'm pretty sure we'll have you on another episode again. So once again, thank you. Thank you for being on. I'm your host and creator, Stilo Free. This is the other host and creator,
.420.
This is the Outside Minds podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We out.
Peace.